Revenue curves of a firm. Welcome to this 22nd presentation on topics in microeconomics. Revenue curves, like the cost curves, are important indicators to take decision by the firm. To sum up what we have done in these theories of production, we can look at the laws of production that we studied: diminishing returns, variable proportions, returns to scale, and economies of scale. Now, these four topics explain to us the relationship between inputs and output, and we understood the various stages of production. From there, we went on to study the cost of a firm, cost curves of a firm. These cost curves of a firm explain to us how does the firm behave in the short run and in the long run in terms of cost, and what are the different types of cost. That is an important element to study because it explains what is the cost of production of a firm. The next important item in the theory of production is that of revenues of firm. When we mean revenues of a firm, we mean the money that the firm obtained by the sale of produce. Together, we have the cost curves and revenue curves that will help us understand the functioning of the markets, which is so important in economics. So let us go to study the revenue curves of a firm. Revenue is the income obtained by a firm by selling its product in the market. It's simple. What did the firm get by selling those units in the market? And revenue curve can be examined both from the perfect market and imperfect market. In this presentation, we shall not be looking into the features or what are perfect markets and imperfect markets, except that one element of these two markets will be taken, where I shall talk about price being held constant and price being allowed to change. These are the only two elements that I will take in this presentation. Now, we have terms like total revenue. Since we have already done total production, total output, and total cost, we are already familiar with those topics. This should not be difficult for us to understand. So total revenue is the revenue obtained by the firm by the total number of units sold multiplied by the price at which this particular unit is being sold. Now, if to draw a diagram, we can see it has got an upward sloping curve. That means as the number of units sold increases, the total revenue of the firm also increases. That is in the condition of perfect market, where the price of the product is taken at constant at 10. So the total revenue curve rises in a constant at a constant rate. Now let us see this table here. So we are selling the product at the same price at rupees 10. So the first column talks to us about the number of units sold, and the second column is about the total revenue. So total revenue is 10, 20, 30, and 40. So that is the total money that the firm has obtained by the sale of its produce. Average revenue. Average revenue is now total revenue divided by the number of units sold, which is also the price of the product. So what is the revenue obtained by the sale of per unit? That is total revenue by the quantity sold. And AR is also the demand curve, because AR is the price of the good, and AR is also the demand curve of the firm. AR is held constant because we have fixed the price at rupees 10 for any number of units sold. The price will be rupees 10. So firm in this particular case of perfect market is only a price taker. Let us see this table. So average revenue is 10 divided by 1 is 10, 20 divided by 2 is 10, 30 divided by 3 is 10, and 40 divided by 4 is also 10. So that is how the average revenue will remain at 10, and average revenue is also the price of the product. Now let us see this marginal revenue. Marginal revenue is the addition made to the total revenue of the firm. Now that means when one more unit is sold, what is the addition that is made to the firm's total revenue? So marginal revenue is TRN minus TRN minus 1. So if you reduce one unit, what has been the addition to that total revenue? MR is also constant because AR is constant and price is constant. MR is the rate at which the total revenue changes. We have found that it is increasing at a constant rate. Under perfect competition, we accept that the average revenue is the same as marginal revenue is the same as price. We can see the table once again. The marginal revenue, the first one is not necessary. The second one, 20 minus 10 is 10, 30 minus 20 is 10, 40 minus 30 is also 10. So the marginal revenue is the addition made to the total revenue. Now what do we understand from this table? We have assumed that the price is going to be 10 all through, because under perfect competition there is no change in the price by the firm. The price is given by the industry. So here we are now seeing total revenue, which is the addition of the total multiplication of the total units sold by the price. Average revenue is the price itself, which is 10 each, and marginal revenue is the addition made to the total revenue. We can see this in the diagram. Because AR and MR is the same as price, we can see the first panel where the demand and supply meets, and that is the price of rupees 10. At that price of rupees 10, we now draw the average revenue and marginal revenue. Average revenue and marginal revenue is 10. So the number of units sold, or the vertical lines that you're seeing, those indicate to the number of units being sold. Any number of units can be sold, but the price will remain 10, and therefore the average revenue and marginal revenue will also remain 10. So under perfect competition, AR is equal to MR is equal to price. This is an important learning because we shall be using this AR equal to MR equal to price later when we do the concept of perfect market. Now, there is also this market which is known as imperfect competition, and there is one of the type of imperfect competition, imperfect market, is known as monopoly. In the case of imperfect market, the firm is in a position to change the price to influence its sale, and the firm can sell at a lower price if it desires to sell, so that it can sell more units of the product. And demand curve, we know, is a downward sloping curve, indicating that as the price falls of the commodity, the more units will be sold. And because of that, we will find that the marginal revenue of the curve, marginal revenue will be lower than the average revenue. So in the diagram, you can see the average revenue is above the marginal revenue, and marginal revenue can also become negative. Let us look at the table. The TR, MR, and AR curve under imperfect competition and under monopoly. Monopoly is the extreme form of imperfect competition. The curves can be a little more. It is more inelastic in the case of monopoly. That is the only difference here at this point that we need to see. So we can see the number of units sold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we can see the total revenue is not like the one that we did earlier, where the total revenue was increasing by 10 rupees every time. Here the total revenue is increasing from 10 to 18 to 24 to 28 to 30 and to 29. Now, since we have already done what is AR and MR curve, we can explain it here itself. The average revenue curve of the firm is constantly falling. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. What does it mean? That the firm is able to sell its unit at a lower price each time. So more units can be sold at lower price. When the price is rupees 5, the firm was able to sell 6 units. When the price was rupees 10, the firm was able to sell only 1 unit. So that is why the AR curve is a downward sloping curve. And you can also see the marginal revenue. In the case of marginal revenue, 18 minus 10 is 8, then 24 minus 18 is 6, then 28 minus 24 is 4, 30 minus 28 is 2, and then it is 29 minus 30, where we get it as minus 1. The sign is missing, it is minus 1. Now let's understand the relationship between marginal revenue, average revenue, and total revenue. Total revenue rises to reach maximum. You can see that in the table. Total revenue reaches the maximum at 30 and then falls. Then we can see AR continues to fall as more and more units are sold. So average revenue, you can see, continues to fall as more and more units are sold. And you can see the marginal revenue continues to fall as more and more units are sold, just like the average revenue. The only difference is that the marginal revenue falls faster than the fall in the average revenue. When the average revenue falls to 7, you can see that the marginal revenue has already fallen to 4. When the average revenue has fallen to 6, then the marginal revenue has fallen to 2. And when the average revenue, average revenue has fallen to 5, you can see that the marginal revenue actually is minus 1, not 1. So it has fallen to becoming negative. Relationship between marginal revenue and total revenue can also be understood that when the total revenue curve is at the maximum, marginal revenue will be at the minimum, and marginal revenue becomes negative once the total revenue or curve starts falling. We can see that in the diagram. You see here, imperfect market, the average revenue is above the marginal revenue curve, and marginal revenue curve is the red line which is below the axis, and therefore it indicates to that minus 1, which I have missed out to put this a symbol there. And you can see just below that the panel which has got a total revenue curve. Now total revenue curve has increased to reach its maximum at point K, and then it has started diminishing. So the relationship between the total revenue, marginal revenue, and average revenue can be understood this way. The total revenue increases and reaches its maximum when the marginal revenue touches the axis, and after that, once the marginal revenue starts falling, the total revenue also starts falling, and average revenue continues to fall. Elasticity. We can explain elasticity through the use of the revenue curves. In the case of perfect market, we found that the AR is equal to MR is equal to price, in which case the demand curve is a perfect horizontal straight line indicating perfect elasticity. Whereas when we use the imperfect market, what we are finding is that the downward sloping AR curve, which is also the price, shows that more and more units are sold when the price is reduced, and in which case it will indicate to relatively elastic demand. But when it comes to monopoly, we will find that it is relatively inelastic demand, because the price is not going to fall just the same way as it happens under other forms of imperfect market. So in this particular unit, we have examined the revenue of a firm in terms of total revenue, average revenue, and marginal revenue, both under perfect market conditions and imperfect market conditions. In the perfect market condition, we understood that at the constant price, the marginal revenue will add up, or we can also say that the average revenue will also be the same and equal to price. Whereas in the case of imperfect market, we understood that the prices will keep changing as the number of units are being sold, because price will be reduced, and therefore it has got a downward slope. We can use these two terms of cost and revenues to understand the markets. The next presentation will be on the terms that are relevant to the study of markets.